I ain't tripping too bad. Oh, my lupin, y'all. Hold on. Hello. Welcome to Yellow Door Urban Homestead. I am Asia, and I'm an urban gardener growing in a small space out in my backyard. And today is April the 2nd. I did plant a spring garden. I am in Virginia, Zone 7B, where it gets really warm really quick here, right? But I am taking my chances this year. Also did this last year, and it worked out. And so today, though, I want to show you my spring garden in my urban backyard that I am just hoping to get another harvest of the cool season vegetables. It's also mixed in with some vegetables that can take a little bit of heat. My trees are starting to bloom and I'm getting leaves on the trees, and I'm just excited. And so I want to take you all along. I want to take you on a full garden tour. So if you are new here, I also raise chickens and I also raise quail, but we're not going to talk about them today. Those garden tours take a little bit longer to do, and so it's about 5 something in the afternoon. It's been very gloomy here today, and so I was waiting for some sun, because also, if you're not new here, you know I don't like the cold. But if you are, then you know, like I have on a little sweater today. So it's about 60 some degrees out here today, but it was gloomy with no sun, so for me that is cold. Anyway, let's take a look around the garden. I'm actually really excited, y'all, and it may not look like a lot right now, and then we lost some things that I planted out. So in case you are interested, I have, in the last 2 years, I've planted out in February. Yes, it's still cold in February, but we don't normally have snow. We had just a lot of snow this year, and so everything got planted out a little later than I did last year. Last year did pretty good. With that being said, some things did die, but a lot of things survived. And so let's look. As I said, it is April the 2nd, and we have things blooming and we have things growing. Also, my fall plants, if it is a fall plant at this point, I am not trying to harvest off of it anymore. I'm gonna let it go to seed. I'm gonna let it flower. I'm gonna let the pollinators enjoy it, and I'm no longer attempting to harvest. I did a large harvest, well, let's not say large. I did a decent sized harvest over the weekend, and then I decided we're gonna let this stuff flower. I'm no longer going to try to keep it alive. It's still out in the garden because I don't plan to plant out until May. And with that being said, there's a whole month where I can let these things bloom. If they dry quick enough, I can save the seeds, but if not, they could be here for the pollinators. So with that being said, let's take a look. So we're gonna start here with these winter sowing jugs that just did not do that well. By the way, this is actually a bok choy or pak choy that I somehow got mixed up. And actually, I probably didn't get it mixed up. I reused my soil over here. So if I had soil that I planted seeds in and the seeds didn't come up, I just put it all back into a bowl and then I will use it again. So chances are the soil that I put in this tarragon container had a pak choy seed in it or a bok choy seed in it, and then it ended up sprouting. So that worked, but it didn't work. So that's going to seed, and I just haven't opened the containers. The lemon mint did amazingly, right? Everything else really has nothing exciting inside of it. Basically, things started to sprout, but they're still really small. Someone left a comment and they said maybe you need to open the jugs. Maybe I will, because I can't lose anything by opening the jugs at this point. I just never have had to before, and I would have already had plants in here. Like I mentioned in the last video, I think that I use different soil. I have to go back, but I think that I used a different soil than I would normally use. I would normally use my seed starting soil. When I look down in the containers, it doesn't look like my seed starting soil, but I could be completely wrong. Winter sowing did not go so well for me this year. Will I do it again next year? Absolutely, because I do know that it works. It just didn't work for me this year. Anywho, right beside those winter sowing jugs is asparagus, and so we had some pretty tall asparagus the last time. I did go ahead and harvest them, and I did eat them. They were fine. Now, closer to the bottom of them, they did get woody, so I had to cut off a decent amount of it for me in my backyard. That's what happened, but they were edible, and so I'm happy about that. Also, I'm trying my hardest artist this year to kind of make sure I come out here and I harvest them, because every year pretty early I have a bunch of ferns because I forget to harvest them. And so this is what an asparagus will turn into if you don't harvest it soon enough. Like this one is probably gonna do it. It's very long and I'm just gonna let it go, but this is what it turns into. And also this is what a seedling, an asparagus seedling looks like right there. So at the end of the year, I do not remove the ferns. So these are the ferns that dried out, what you're seeing on my garden bed right now. And at the end of the year, just like any other plant or most plants, asparagus makes seeds. So at the end of their time, you'll start to see like little red balls on them on the female plants, and those are the seeds. So if you don't remove them, just like any other seed, it's gonna self-sow. And that's what I have going on here. There are a few plants down here. I may pull them up, and if I know someone who wants to grow asparagus, I'll just put them in some pots and take them to them. So I started my asparagus from seed. And of course, if you start from seed, it's gonna take like 3 years before you can harvest. But I feel like it was worth it. I enjoyed the whole process of growing them from seed and letting them get established. So I didn't have a problem with that. You can also buy them from root, and I think they are 1 or 2 year roots. And we talked about this a few videos ago. And then you can harvest them sooner. But I started mine from seed, and that's like pretty much the whole life cycle, what I just showed you. What the seedling looks like, what it looks like when it's ready to harvest, and when it's too far past harvest. So right beside the asparagus, we have some peas, and these peas I believe were planted sometime in January. I just put the seeds out here, let them stay until they were ready to actually grow, and this is what I have so far. Like I said, it's April. We don't have any actual pods or anything, but the plants look really good. I normally have pretty spindly pea plants. These look better than what I've had in the past, and I know they still look a little thin, but they look better than what I've had in the past, and I'm pretty happy about that. And if you're not new here, you remember we also planted some peas over here. They never actually came up, so I'm not sure what's going on. I'm not going to replant it because I'll probably plant something else there for summer, so there's really no point in planting them now. So we'll just let that trellis do its thing, not to mention the grapevine. If you can see, I hope you can. The grapevine is actually starting to grow leaves, and the grapevine is actually taking over this trellis. So I may not plant anything on this trellis. It may just be the grapevine trellis. And this is a trellis when you first come into my garden. Oh, apple flowers, y'all. And they are kind of everywhere. Okay, there's more right there, some right here, some right here. Now, what I did not realize when I was trying to get rid of like branches and things is that there's a branch coming from that apple tree and coming into this trellis along with the grapevine. Now, I'm gonna leave it. I'm just gonna leave it and see what happens, because I have never had this many flowers on either of my apple trees. So if there is a chance that I could get apples this year, I'm gonna leave it. And I'm gonna leave every flower on that tree this year too, because I'm very excited. I'm not gonna lie to y'all, I'm very excited because I'm thinking even if I get to taste one apple off this tree, I will be excited. Another thing exciting that has happened in the last few days is these were praying mantis sacks. There's 2 right here, then there's 1 right there. They hatched last week, I think, not this week, last week. Those praying mantis sacks hatched last week, and praying mantis are friends of the garden, and I have never had those in my garden before, but I am very big on growing my ecosystem. And so if you're new here, I do not spray or do anything, not even organically at this point, because I want to build my ecosystem. I want the ecosystem to take care of my pests and all of those things. So I was very excited to see. I just happened to come out here one morning and I was looking at them, mostly because I was like, I really want to do something with this grapevine. But then I noticed there were baby praying mantis everywhere, y'all. And so I didn't do anything. Although at this point I know that they have hatched. I don't know. I just feel like even with the grapevine, I just feel like last year I got the best grape harvest ever. And I didn't prune it or anything. I am not telling anybody not to prune their grapevine, right? 100% not. I just didn't get around to it. But I mean, I got the best grape harvest ever. And so we're gonna see where that takes us this year. I'm not going to cut the grapevine per se. I just want to kind of of push the limbs in places, and if something breaks, I want it to be okay if it breaks. But yeah, I didn't do anything, but I do want to. But speaking of the grapevine, everything you're seeing here that's sprouting on this front trellis that's going up these trellises, that is this one grapevine right here. Like, it's huge in my opinion. Because when I purchased it, it was really small and I wasn't expecting it to do this. But yeah, I am gonna try to tame it a little bit. I don't know that I'm going to cut it, but that is the grapevine, y'all. Like, it's taking over. So in the last few videos, I've been kind of showing the things that are growing, but y'all, if you remember the last few videos, this is the collard bed that has some kohlrabi in it. The rain and the cooler weather at night has really been helping. Everything is getting larger. Do you remember the Swiss chard that had gotten eaten down? And yes, there are holes in some things right now. It's getting warm. The pests, of course, are coming. But do you remember what they looked like? They have grown in like a week or two. I mean, it was a week, I think. And so in this bed, I have some kohlrabi. These are purple kohlrabi. There's a snapdragon here. That snapdragon is actually from fall, and it did horrible in the fall. I just left it, and now it's looking really good. I love that for me. We also have a calendula that I recently planted out. There's onions going down the front of this bed, well, halfway down, because I'm pretty sure my dog got in here and she messed around right here. But a lot of the onions are still here, and I actually thought they were gone, and they are looking good. That's one right there, looking good. They're going all the way down. So you see that? We still got onions planted. People always say if you plant onions at the perimeter of your bed, you should have less pest pressure. I'm very interested to see if that's actually a thing, because I don't normally do this. And this year, honestly, I have garlic and onions pretty much around the perimeter of most of my beds. So I am interested to see how that's gonna work out. But like I said, Swiss chard here, that's a kohlrabi. You got some collards here. These are two different varieties. I believe this is Georgia Southern, and these are Vates. Yes, I can see the tags now. And there's another kohlrabi, and nothing is appearing to be bolting. So I am keeping my fingers crossed. The kohlrabi is looking really good. There you have another calendula, some more kohlrabi. This is also a snapdragon that was in from the fall that just didn't do good, but it's coming back for me this year. Now that one cabbage from the fall, it is starting to bolt, starting to flower, go to seed. These are all the names you'll hear for this, and so I'm just leaving it, and I'm gonna let the pollinators enjoy it until I'm ready to plant out. And then there's another kohlrabi down there. This bed is in front of my orchard area, and the orchard is also looking good. This is a peach tree, and we have flowers on here. Super excited about that. I think they all look okay. This is a peach from last year. The leaves and things are coming back. We have another peach tree over here with a bunch of flowers on it as well. Now I will tell you, this year I am gonna thin my peaches. So last year I had peaches all over my trees. They were bending the branches. A lot of them did fall on their own, but I think that this year I am going to thin them myself, just because I feel like it would save the tree itself. Because yeah, a lot of the limbs were just bent down on these trees last year. Although I got some really tasty peaches, I'm also going to remember to harvest them a little bit earlier because they rotted quickly. I waited for them to get like really soft, or not really soft, but soft to the touch on the tree, and they rotted really quick on my table, and I don't want that to happen this year. Up under, this is a peach tree. You have some sage, and then you just have a whole bunch of comfrey, and this is the grapevine that we're looking at right here. But under that is just a whole bunch of comfrey. Then over here is either wormwood or mugwort. I'm gonna look that up so I can tell y'all exactly what it is, but I just haven't, because I haven't. And then we have a little bit of lavender over here, which in my area, that is perennial. And so it's starting to come back down at the bottom. I do need to cut the things from last year. I just haven't. Then of course, there's rosemary that's just going nowhere. Also perennial in my area, and that lived and was green all winter long. Very excited about that. Little bit of oregano. This is also perennial in my area. That's starting to come back. And then we have a few more comfrey plants. And there's a comfrey plant down here as well. And my fig, as I said in the last video, is starting to wake up. It has even more leaves on it now than in the last video that I showed you all. And at the end of the orchard, we have a few pots that have some things in it, as well as some very overgrown rose bushes, but I did not cut them as soon as I would want to, and now they're already budding. So we're not gonna cut these this year, but next year we will. And I'm gonna look it up to see like just how much I can cut, because what I want is for them to be low and bushy, not tall and bushy. And the pots down here, I think this was a mint, but it hasn't started to really come back. What you're seeing that's green in there is like weeds, so I'm still giving it some time. We have a few garlic. They were just extras, and I definitely have not been taking care of them, but they're still growing, so we'll see. It's another comfrey plant here, and that has woken up really nicely. Since I'm not planning to put any more herbs down here, I'm probably gonna go ahead and get that out of the pot this year too, and get it into the ground, because comfrey, as I understand it, as I have read, done research on, it is a plant where the roots will go deep down into the soil and get nutrients that other plants can't get. I'm using it for fertilization this year, and a few people have asked, do I have a video where I've made it? I do, but the only thing I really do is cut the leaves off, put them in water, and let them sit. So that's the basic thing I do. Someone also asked me about the dilution rate that I use. I don't know, y'all. Because I always say ratios are not my thing. Someone did explain it to me, and I was like, well, yeah, ratios could be just fine. But as it relates to like giving someone else advice on like actual ratios, I would say go look at Hugh Richards. He uses this all the time, and I think he would be a better person for you to find ratios from. Behind the comfrey, you have some, I want to say that's marshmallow. No, that's not marshmallow. That's anise hyssop, and I need to come through and cut off the branches from last year. But this is also perennial in my area, so I planted that once. It comes back every year. Down here, we also appear to have some more anise hyssop. Which I do not think that's what was in this pot. I'm pretty sure that was feverfew, but I'm guessing maybe an anise hyssop seed fell, and now we have another hyssop plant, which is fine. And this is feverfew, very beautiful, very nice for the pollinators. Also, it's good medicinally. This is mint, and that is also waking up and coming back. And another anise hyssop and a marshmallow right there. And I do want to learn how to use that marshmallow, because I'm pretty sure, do your research, the leaves can be used as well as the flowers, and the flowers on those plants are really pretty as well. You have another pot, which I'm pretty sure was mint, but it may not be coming back, which is, yeah, it was orange mint. Doesn't look like it's coming back, which is fine, because I now have lemon mint that I can replace both of these, well, not that one, the pot down there and this pot with, which is fine. And then we have some lemon balm, and that's also coming back. It is perennial in my area. Under these pots are daisies, and daisies are perennial in my area too. So this whole section was daisies. Kind of wanted to break it up anyway, because it was a huge plant. So now you have a portion of that daisy here, portion of that daisy there, and this whole area will just be full of stuff when we get into spring, and well, deep into spring and then early summer. So I think it's gonna be really pretty. I like that area over there. Someone said one time, it looks like snakes to me, and I was like, oh, please don't say that. I don't like those things. Right across from the orchard area, the bed I just showed you, those pots, we have some bags. They have not been planted in yet. I will be planting tomatoes in here, and I will be doing the Florida weave method to trellis them, but right now, as we are not ready to plant, they are empty. And these poles are actually for peppers. I think I've mentioned in another video that at the end of the season, I will move my peppers so they can get a little bit of shade, because most of the time the tomatoes have died out now. This year may be different, because I really do want to succession sow. In my area, the tomatoes will go right up until the first frost. So probably sometime end of May, I'm gonna start some more tomatoes. So that by like July, if the tomatoes start to die out, I will have some more tomatoes, short maturity tomatoes that is, to replant and then have tomatoes still growing when we reach our first frost. So that is my plan. That is my plan. I'm really trying to succession sow this year. Once I get everything out of the greenhouse and plant it, I'm gonna start thinking about the next things that I can plant for a second wave. Behind these bags, you have a strawberry patch and you have an onion patch. Let's start with the strawberry patch. These are my strawberries, all started from a store purchased strawberry that I just kind of cut and put into some soil. And as you can see, we have a lot going on here already. So I'm very excited. I do believe that these are June bearing strawberries. Like I get a nice flush all at once. And then I might get a few stragglers, but I don't get just 2 big flushes or 3 flushes. So I think they're June bearing, but you don't quote me because like I said, I started this from a strawberry that I got from the store early on. They've been here. I get runners every year. So with that being said, I don't know what they are, but I do know that they do produce. And so right behind the strawberries, or beside it, however you want to look at it, is the onion bed. But in that onion bed, I also have some spinach. So I started this spinach from seed and I planted this out in February as well. They did get eaten down quite a bit, but they're all coming back and they're all growing, and I love that for me. So the thing with spinach is spinach prefers cooler temperatures, right? And it will bolt in the heat of like summer. So that's why I'm trying to get harvest now, eat me some fresh spinach, because I don't eat it cooked. Like I'm not gonna preserve this. I don't eat spinach cooked. It is slimy to me. But I will eat it in a salad. I will eat it on a sandwich. And so that's why I also planted these in February, because I wanna be able to enjoy some spinach. And honestly, this is the first time I've done this well with spinach as well. As I mentioned, right beside that spinach is some onions. And I mentioned in another video that I have all different day length onions in here because I'm trying to figure out for myself which are the best onions as well as the best time to plant them in my area. They're getting much taller. They're getting much thicker, and I'm very excited about that. I have not done any like snipping, so like cutting off the tops or giving them a haircut, whatever you want to call it, just because I think I need to get them to a bigger state, a larger state. And I think people are saying like cut them because that makes them grow some more. And I mean, I guess I do believe that. I just haven't done it, and I want them to be a bit thicker and a bit taller before I do that. Right beside those 2 beds, you have some more bags where we'll be planting tomatoes. I always just do 2 rows because I need to be able to get in and out as I'm weaving it. That's why you're only seeing 2 rows, and I didn't like just put a whole bunch together anywhere. It's just easier for me in the small space that I have. I'm trying to use just about every spot that I have as well as I can, and so that's how I did it. And then I still have space to grow in between in beds. So we have bags around this Vigo garden bed, and they will house peppers. And so this area does get a decent amount of shade, and so I'm very interested to see if the peppers that I put around this bed that get a little bit of shade, you know, close to the end of the day, do better than peppers that I'm going to put here and where I'm going to put them there. I am doing a lot of like tests and trials this year because I feel like I'm very much growing as a gardener, but there are some things that I'm really just not sure of, and I've read that it's a thing and I should do it, and so that's what I'm gonna do this year, or not do. It depends. And in this bed, it's supposed to be perennial, but at the end of the season, everything that was perennial that had died back or I cut out, I covered this bed with the stuff out of the chicken run. And so I don't know if maybe it's too deep at this point because the soil had really settled. So I put a lot in here, so they may not come back up. If they don't, we'll plant something else in here. I'm really thinking about corn, y'all. I'm really thinking about corn, and then figuring out a way to make sure if it blows, the corn doesn't blow over. Anyway, we'll talk about that later. Also, we have some volunteers in here. It's a tomato over there and another tomato over there. So the honest truth is, depending on what else comes up in this bed, we may just let it be a bed of things that volunteered. I just saw another one right here. Another something is volunteering. It may just end up being a bed of volunteers, and we may just see what happens in this bed, because that could be pretty cool too. Because my original plan for the corn was to plant it in bags. People said plant them in bags, and that was was my original reason for even starting corn, because I always said I don't think I have enough space for corn, but I want to grow corn. I think it would just be cool. While corn is very cheap at the grocery store, I just think it would be cool to grow. And so we're gonna see what happens there. But for now, the bed is kind of bare, but also there are things growing in it. And so I've shown you this whole entire section. We're gonna move over to the blueberry bushes. And so the blueberries have quite a bit of flowers, or where the flowers were. The flowers have fallen off now, and what you see here is what's going to turn into my blueberry. This is what the flowers look like early spring, and this is what it looks like before it turns into a blueberry. And so we have 5 blueberry bushes right here, all from Lowe's, I'm pretty sure of that, and they all produce very nicely for me every year. There are so many blooms on them right now. The bees have really been on the blueberries, so I'm pretty excited. For me, that tells me it's a possibility I'm gonna get a lot of blueberries just like I did last year, and that makes me super excited. If you're interested, they are all in ground, and I fertilize them with Hollytone. I do Hollytone in the early spring, and then I just let them go for what they know. It seems to be working, and even in years that I forget to fertilize them, they also still do pretty well. I don't know if my soil is already a little bit acidic, and that's why. I also have wood chips down, but I haven't always had wood chips down, and they do pretty good. So either way, I'm excited, and I can't wait to get a blueberry harvest. Right behind the blueberries, we have a bed of brassicas. Essentially, they're pretty much all brassicas, and there's a calendula at this end. It's a calendula down this end that I just planted. So that's one there, and then there's another one there. And so if you remember when we planted, well, we didn't plant these together, but these weren't that big. They have grown. There's also a nasturtium in this bed. In my area, nasturtiums and calendula start to die out when it gets really, really hot. And so that's why I wanted to get them planted out a little bit earlier so that I could get like a good harvest of both of them before they start to die out, and they're doing really good. Our 35-degree day turned to 37, and then we had a night that I think was maybe 41. It switched to 38, which is why I don't feel comfortable planting out my whole garden just yet. But the things that I know are fine for cool nights or even a light frost, I'm gonna plant those out so that I don't have so many things to plant out at once when it's time to plant the summer garden. But also, these are all broccoli across the front. They were a short maturing broccoli, so I'm hopeful for that. And then if you remember, we have this curled kale here. It did start to flower. Before I made the decision just to let these things flower, I also cut it out, but I also ended up harvesting them, and we use that kale as well. Behind the broccoli and the kale are collards, and then there's also some spinach back there too, growing really nicely. I hope you can see it. I know the sun is out. But then you also have these collards. So the collards stop here, then the rest is broccoli. But like I said, things are growing very quickly right now. We've had warm days, cool nights, and not cold nights, not freezing nights. And this is when they are starting to say, you know what, all right, time to wake up, time to start growing. Around this bed, in every hole of the brick is an onion. Now, I do not know which variety each onion is, because I got them mixed up at some point when I started them. But all the holes have onions in them, and I'm hoping that's good enough to deter the pest. But if not, that's fine too. But that's what I'm hopeful for. Also, it's just a way to expand my growing space. The holes of the bricks are very nice to use. When I first started gardening, everybody was saying like, why don't you fill in the holes of your bricks? And originally, I'm gonna tell you why I didn't do it. It just seemed like a lot of work. And true story, it's a lot of work to fertilize them because you're going from like every hole, but I do think that it is worth it. And so I do use my holes more now, and this year I said I want to use them for like onions, garlics, and leeks. And so we do have some leeks left, and in the holes where garlic did not come up in other beds, we're going to plant leeks there, but we want every hole to be planted this year. Beside that bed are some more bags. These bags will house peppers this year. I'm still working on getting everything filled. True story, that that has not been done simply because I don't feel like picking up the bags at the store, and I don't feel like picking them up when I come home. When I did my hose link, I asked my son, I said, can you come with me to the store, because I just don't feel like picking up bags today. So I'm probably going to do the same thing with him when I go get the rest of the soil to fill the rest of the bags that I have. This is coming down the middle of my garden. Middle of my garden, we have some very pretty purple bags from Bootstrap Farmer. In case you were interested, I do get that question all the time. They are from Bootstrap Farmer. There is a link down in the description, always is. But they are housing potatoes. We only have, I want to say, 2 bags where nothing has happened, but I will go ahead and replant those sometime this week, because for me in my backyard, I have found that my potatoes just do better in the early spring, like getting started in the early spring, and then they thrive during the summer. So I want to make sure that I have things sprouted in these bags long before summer gets here and our really hot weather. So we will do that, but I'm going to show you really quick all of the potatoes. These are the potatoes, what I'm showing you right now, that were planted, I want to say sometime in February, might have been January, and I just planted them in the bags and I left them. Nothing sprouted, but they did just stay dormant until the time was right. So the ones that I just showed you, the first 10 bags were planted out either in January or February. Then I came and I added more bags. I purchased some bags from Bootstrap Farmer myself because I just really like them. I like the color, and I also think that they're pretty sturdy. So just telling you. So this is one of the bags. No, it's not. That one has a sprout in it, and that one does too. So these are starting to become active, and so I think these were planted out maybe in February too, but just a little bit later. Technically, we only have 1 bag with no activity, which is so interesting because this morning when I came out here, we had 2 bags with no activity. So maybe I need to give that other bag a little more time. I just am not sure because they've been in there for quite some time already. So this is where we're growing potatoes this year, and I am growing 20 bags of potatoes. I have never done this before. I am very hopeful. I think I planted 2 potatoes to a bag, and that's just how I do it. I've seen people plant 4 potatoes to a bag. I've seen them plant them on different levels. There is no one way to do anything in the garden. I always say that. So when I tell you what I did, I'm just sharing. Absolutely not saying it's what you have to do. Also not saying it's gonna work, because if you are new here, you don't know that I will try anything, whether it works or it doesn't work. Like my sweet potato slips, they're pretty much dead. I am sure they're dead. But what I will say is I have put my sweet potato slips in soil once they get roots. What I think the difference is this year is I also put them outside in that greenhouse. But it's okay for me. Again, like I said, I didn't want to really grow them anyway. Like it wasn't like ooh, I want them. So I'm not gonna worry about them, honest truth. We probably not gonna have sweet potatoes. We were, but then we won't. Across from the asparagus bed that I already showed you, and beside these unsuccessful jugs, is another garden bed. And it has garlic in each hole. That's what I was telling you. Some of them have come up, some of them have not. But as I mentioned, the ones that don't have garlic coming up, I'm going to put leeks in them. I have a few leeks left, and that's my plan with those leeks. I will get those out this week as well. But in the front of that bed is some lettuce, and so this is a Bib Butterhead lettuce. And someone said, I don't know if you know you can use the leaves, you don't have to wait for the head. I do know that, but we eat a meal where I want the head, and so I'm just waiting for these to head up. Now, do I need to wait for all of these? Probably not, because we're not going to eat that meal that many times. But that is the lettuce, also planted out in February. And then there's a beautiful snapdragon here. This was planted out in fall, so was this one. You have a mix of fall and spring right here. Well, a mix of fall and spring plantings, because those snapdragons I planted in fall, but of course they came back in spring. In my area, snapdragons can go all the way through the winter and then start growing again in spring. I don't get flowers or anything in the winter, but the plants survive, and then I will have them for spring. Right behind that lettuce is some leeks, which you can't really see if I'm standing up, but those are the leeks. And if you were here when we planted those out, you remember just how fragile and small they were. They are growing as well, and we love it. Going down the side of that bed is some more spinach. This spinach was also planted in fall. It's stunted, but the weather is right, and now it's growing. I put a calendula here recently, and this, I am sure, is a leek that at some point either I dropped, I missed last year, and it's just growing. It's huge, y'all. Look how big that leek is. I can't wait to harvest it. I probably need to harvest it now. But it's a beautiful leek. Probably the best leek I ever grown by mistake. And there's some more spinach back here, also planted in fall, and another snapdragon right there. So we did lose most of those tree collards except for the one that I just planted. And I'm gonna tell you why I think we lost them. I think I needed to leave them in the pots to let them get more roots before I planted them out, because the new one that I planted, you could clearly see that it had rooted. So I know that for the next time, because I absolutely was able to take the branches off of that tree collar and just root it. And so I'm excited to know that, because that's my plan, to get more instead of buying more. Then, like behind the lettuce, behind the leeks, I've also planted some nasturtiums. And so just waiting for those to kind of get their footing, but they are getting stable, because I think there was maybe 3 leaves on this when I planted it out, maybe 3 or 4. They are growing. I'm excited. And also, like in past years, I have really fought with my garlic separating, like the cloves separating. And normally I can see that at the top, because it kind of does this. So it's still doing it, but it's not doing it nearly as much or nearly as bad on most of the plants. So I'm very happy to see that, because I really do want garlic to store. Normally when that happens, I just peel the garlic and make it into powder, but I really want some garlic to store this year, and it's looking like that may happen for me. I'm very excited. Down the middle row, in between these 2 beds, we have some fall broccoli and cabbage. And so I have done my last harvesting from this, and I'm just gonna let everything go to seed. You see, this cabbage has already gone to seed. There was no way for me to stop that. But the broccoli is still throwing out side shoots, but at this point I think the plant has had it. And there's another cabbage that is going to seed. All of these plants were planted very late. I had a very hard fall, and I found a really good deal on some plants. So I came home and I planted them, and I planted them in bags, and they did really well. So it's safe to say that in fall of this year, we will be planting in bags. We will be planning to plant in bags, because these plants did really well. As I mentioned, beside these bags, there's another bed, and that's that bed. Also looking amazing. Like I said, not all the garlic came up, and so these garlic, I did not have a lot of faith in them when I planted them, and now you can see why. The garlic cloves were very soft. I got them from my local feed and seed, and they put them in plastic bags, and I was like, I feel like that's gonna sweat, and they did. And so they got really soft, and so I still planted them though, because that's like just who I am. Still planted them. Some of them did germinate, some of them didn't, but I have a backup plan. It's gonna be leeks. In this bed, we have some kohlrabi. Some of our kohlrabi did kind of die. We still have a good amount left in this bed, so everything in the front is kohlrabi. I think this is an onion that I left. I'm not sure. It hasn't started to flower, so it might not be a 2nd-year onion. It may have been a seed I planted. Right behind the kohlrabi, you have some cabbages, also from fall. They look amazing, but I'm pretty sure they're about to flower. We'll see in the next garden tour, but I'm pretty sure they are. I also planted nasturtiums on the edge of the bed, and there's a snapdragon from the fall in here too. But these nasturtiums are looking really good. Like, again, I'm pretty sure they all had a minimal amount of leaves on them when I planted them, so they're looking good. And then there's a calendula back here. Behind that cabbage, we have some more lettuce. I had some extra, so I was like, why not just plant it? And that's what I did. And then, if you remember, we planted broccoli all down this row. There were basically 6 broccolis. 2 survived. And as a matter of fact, None of them survived over here. Forgot to mention that. So they're all gone, which I'm not tripping about. But the broccoli over here, nice size leaves, just growing. This one is of course smaller than that one, not sure why, but when I say of course, it's because you can see it. And back here, the kale is doing really good. So this is a curled kale in the front, and then you have lacinato kale back there. Does look like it's being eaten up a little bit. I hadn't checked the back of the leaves, but I do know I've been seeing the white moth, so it makes sense. Behind it is some Swiss chard that was planted in the fall that did absolutely nothing, and now is doing amazingly, starting to grow. We love it. Beside that Swiss chard, you now have another snapdragon from the fall, and I really got to get through and pull this kind of stuff off, mostly for look purposes, but you know, it would look better if I did that. So everything's just looking good to me. Like I said in the last video, when I was editing it, I said this stuff is not filling out. If you look at it on the video, it just didn't look like things were filling out. But because I was here and I could see it, I was like, they're definitely growing. And now you absolutely can see that it's growing. So very excited. And like I said, on the edge of the bed, we have garlic, and we do have one that's doing the separation thing. Not sure why, but anyway, the rest of them look just fine. So happy about that. And so if you remember, we planted some things out in bags right here, and these were parsnips, and you can see that we have some activity, which I'm very surprised about. I've never gotten parsnips to germinate. I hope these are parsnips. I really don't know what they even look like when they germinate. And this was beets, and so we can see that there's beets in this bag too. I think these were also beets, maybe, not 100% sure. These were radishes, and the radishes are definitely coming up, so we'll be harvesting radishes soon. There's more radishes here, looking good. I feel like this was a radish bag too. Not sure why it's not doing as well, but that's a radish bag. Also a radish bag. And then we absolutely have carrots coming everywhere. The carrot bag seems to be the only bag that I labeled. I don't know what happened there. But the thing, so if you're not new here, I have some type of pest. It's either a mole or a vole, and I have not looked it up. I do appreciate y'all looking it up for me. I think that I don't really care. I just know it's here. But so that's why I put the root vegetables in the bag this spring instead of trying to plant them in a garden bed, because I did find an eaten radish. Found an eaten radish when I was looking through the garden bed, and so with that being said, I was like, we putting these in bags. But it did work, and that's something new because I've never done that before. So learning things based off of my situation at this point. Right beside those bags is another garden bed. Over here we have some cabbages from the fall. I cannot tell if they are trying to, it doesn't feel like they're trying to flower. It really doesn't, but these are cabbages from the fall. They were very small, so they're starting to grow again. I put a calendula in here, and then there's some broccoli from the fall, and there's another broccoli from the fall. You can see there's still side shoots on it. I'm just not picking them right now at this point. Like I said, I'm gonna let them flower. And then all around that is some Swiss chard that also is from the fall. That's looking good as well. Down here, I put in a calendula. I grew calendula here last year, and it grew really well. So I'm hoping that does good. This is a lacinato kale from the fall, and I really can't tell if it's trying to flower or not, but I did harvest it. I'm just gonna wait and see what happens. Also planted a nasturtium. And on the other side of this bed is some cilantro that I planted out a few weeks ago. So there's 2 lines of cilantro here, and then I also put some dill out. Both of those things like cooler temperatures, which is why I have already gone ahead and planted them. So there's 3 rows of dill. And then guess what? I have seeds that I guess fell because I did not pull the pods off, and they've fallen into the soil and they started to germinate. And so that's kind of cool. There's another one right there as well. Right beside the bed I just showed you, you have some bags, and they're all the way around this, and I'm going to use them for tomatoes. When you see these, just know there'll be tomatoes in the bags. In this bed, it's a Vigo garden raised bed, and we have some broccoli plants in here that we're just letting go. Like I said, still have some side shoots. I'm just not worrying about harvesting them right now. And then there's also some onions in in this bed. I had some extras, so that's where I put them. We also have things that are volunteering. Pretty sure that's a borage, and that's another borage right there as well. So if you are new to gardening, please understand, you plant borage one time, you will probably never have to plant it again if you let it go to seed, because it self-sows so easily. I didn't plant any borage. I didn't start any borage this year because I know that borage was going to volunteer. And so just know that if you want borage, plant it one time, you'll never have to plant it again. Right beside that Vigo garden bed, I have planted some calendula. There's also some dill. If you remember, my cabbage over here just kept getting eaten down, or my chickens were getting out, but they didn't actually get the whole stem. And we actually have a cabbage trying to grow back. Nothing's gonna come of it, so I'm just gonna leave it. It's gonna get hot before that cabbage can do anything. So that's what I mean. We also have a volunteer tomato right there. We had tomatoes over here last year, so we'll let that go. This is another calendula, more calendula, and calendula down here as well. And then you have some dill back there and a nasturtium that I just planted out. Just notice this little volunteer, don't know what it is, but what did I plant over here last year? Oh, you know what? Probably has nothing to do with what I planted over here. It's the fact that I used the chicken bedding, and of course when I fed them tomatoes, the seeds went through them, dropped into the bedding, and now we're here. So we have quite a few tomatoes in here now that I'm looking, but it's because I used the chicken bedding, which is fine by me, because true story, I can just move these and continue to grow them. No, I will not know what they are, but they'll be tomato plants. Oh, completely forgot to show you all this. This is beside the bed that has the collards and the broccoli in it. I moved a cabbage, and so it's still alive. Can't tell if it's trying to flower or not, but I also put some calendula right here, and then there's one over there as well. Oh, I'm forgetting everything. There's also a blueberry bush beside the bed that I just showed y'all too. I actually have a total of 6 blueberry bushes. They are all in ground, all from Lowe's, and they are producing amazingly. And at the back of both of the brick beds, you have more bags, and tomatoes will grow here as well. We need to move the poles to the bags that's gonna have the peppers in it, because that's what I use that for. Peppers can get really tall, and they can also start to fall over. And so yeah, someone did ask me how many peppers, I guess, do I put in a bag. I only put 1, but I'm not saying you can't put more than 1. Peppers do like to hold hands, they do like to touch. I just put 1 because at the end of the season, my bags are full of roots. I pull the plant completely, like roots and all, but a lot of the roots stay, and they're full of roots, but I feel comfortable that those roots will break down because I wasn't growing in my bags over the summer. So we'll have to see next year though. But yeah, behind both of those beds is where I will be planting tomatoes. Also, I think this lemongrass is dead. I also think that moringa tree is dead. But I do think that I'm going to attempt to put my elderberry bushes in these bags. Somebody sent me cuttings. I've been keeping them alive, but I do need to get them planted. Unless I need to plant them after my last frost. I know nothing about elderberry bushes, but I absolutely want them. Also, those bags won't stay there if I plant them, because I don't want my dog to get to them. As I understand it, y'all correct me if I'm wrong, you have to boil elderberry before you can eat it. Like, you cannot eat it uncooked. Tell me if I'm wrong, but I don't want to leave it there if that's the case, because I don't want my dog to end up eating it. And the last thing is we have snapdragons. Now this is a sedum that is not a snapdragon. Comes back every year in my area. Originally I did not like that plant, and then I was like, oh, it's actually kind of cool, and I went and grabbed it out of my compost pile because I had literally pulled it up and was like, I don't like it. And I replanted it. And so we have sedum down here. I think the flowers are really pretty, and actually I think the leaves are pretty too. Not sure what I had going on when I pulled it out and put it in the compost. But this is a whole flower bed full of snapdragons that I planted out in the fall. And so I did recently fertilize them with some fish emulsion. Also, I need to weed over here. Quite a few weeds, but I haven't gotten around to it. But yeah, that's the snapdragon bed. Just waiting for them to get big and start to fill out. By the way, this is actually an echinacea, I believe, and this may be an echinacea too. Echinacea is perennial in my area, and so with that being said, I have not had to grow echinacea again or start echinacea again because it comes back in my area every year. And so the last thing I want to show you are my seedlings. Of course, we're going to be doing seedling updates for a while now. Oh, one second, by the way. Plantain. Planted last year, also perennial in my area. That's in one of the bags that's coming down the aisle to the garden. And I am sorry if my voice sounds like crackly. Y'all, this pollen is out here strong already. Like our cars, I'm in Virginia, like I said, our cars are already covered in the yellow. The trees are waking up, baby. My eyes are itchy and my throat is just like full of pollen. So if you notice that in my voice, that is why. I probably should have said that earlier, but you know, if you make it here, you'll find out. All right, so seedling update. Look at that, y'all. Crazy. I did not spray them today, but aphids and ants, aphids and ants. But I haven't gotten around to spray them today. I've been spraying them almost every day now because they're just everywhere. And I know y'all told me like onion water and stuff. It's almost time for us to plant out. It's all right. I can spray them. It's okay. Oh, this is an eggplant. My eggplant is finally doing some growing. Over here, if you remember, we have some stunted peppers. But I'm still holding on to them because they'll start to grow. And why are they stunted? Because they're outside and it's not warm enough, which is fine. I'm okay with that. I can kind of succession sow them. I can leave them in here until they're ready, and then I can put them out. I ain't tripping too bad. And then you have the tomato plants over here looking pretty good still. So if you're interested, these pots are from Bootstrap Farmer. There's always a link as well. Down here, if you remember, we planted some squash out into the greenhouse, and so these are the ones that were left. I'm gonna go show you the ones in the greenhouse too. So what I do think I'm gonna do, someone said this was a bush variety. Where my broccoli did not make it in that garden bed today or tomorrow, I'm gonna plant these out. Not all of them, just a few, maybe two, because I'm also trying to figure out if I plant my squash early, because I see people say that I plant my squash early and then I get a good harvest, because by the time the vine boards get here, I already got harvest. That's why I'm trying to plant some of these squash out early, even before my last frost. Now, they will die if I get a last frost, but since our weather is not looking like we're gonna have a last frost, I'm gonna do it. And so we have some cucumbers growing here. Some more cucumbers. Oh my goodness, thank goodness. My hollyhocks, can't wait to get those out. Corn, also very ready to get these out because I know that their roots are just growing out of the bottom of these pots. And then we have some more squash, tromboncino squash there. Cantaloupe back here. Also need to be watered. Ooh. Yeah, we're not gonna have any sweet potatoes, y'all, and I'm not tripping. It's okay. Over here we have some sunflowers. We have some zinnias growing. There's fennel back there. Then there's basil here, nasturtiums. Yeah, pretty sure that's an aster. I think that's a basil. I can smell it. And then of course we have more. Oh, my lupin, y'all. Hold on. I'm excited. So literally, this is the first time I've come in the greenhouse today with y'all. Oh my goodness, my lupin is germinating. Someone sent me lupin seeds, and oh yes, I'm so excited. The lupin is germinating, y'all. I'm so excited. Y'all see that? It's germinating in both trays too. I'm super excited about that. Nice. I'm gonna have lupin. I want these over with the snapdragons. I just think it would be really, really pretty. That's exciting. That's very exciting. The things that we sowed the other day, of course, nothing is coming up in there, but it's okay. I'm pretty sure that we will get some kind of germination in there too. Those lupin made me super excited. I can't even lie. All right, let's go look in the greenhouse so we can see how the squash are doing in there. I haven't been in here today either, so we shall see. Oh, they're looking good. actually getting some true leaves on them. Nice. These are the ones we just planted out. This one doesn't have a true leaf on it. Neither does that. But this one does have a true leaf. And then I was successful apparently at digging around this. So super excited about that. If I'm lucky, I will get some squash out of this greenhouse this year. And then the last thing is stinging nettle. Absolutely not gonna touch it. Stinging is true. There is St. John's wort back here. I want to move it because this stinging nettle is just shading it. The sun comes from this way, and so it's shading it. I'm probably gonna move that. And then there's more garlic in here. And we are waiting to see what happens here. I just happened to have more garlic. That garden bed soil was terrible, and I was like, okay, I'm just gonna put the garlic in here. Maybe it'll break it up, loosen it up a little bit. And so that's what I did. That's exactly what I did. So that is the April 2nd garden tour. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Don't forget to visit me over on Instagram, where I post about the things going on in my garden almost every day. Bye, y'all.